We are, I believe, on 13a. 3 lines from the wide lines. 2 lines from the wide lines. 2 lines, Amar of Yehuda. So basically, we had a dispute, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan yesterday. Can you benefit the idolaters? You can't get benefit from them, but can you give them money and benefit them? Reish Lakish said yes. Rabbi Yochanan said no. To that, we asked from the opinion of Rabbi Nassan, which seemed to fly in the face of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says, yeah, they argue. The rabbis and Rabbi Nassan argue. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, we're saying that they don't argue. Then we had this long brisa that we're still in the middle of, but the brisa ended up saying that you could buy animals and servants and maidservants from the idol worshippers, seeming to apply you could benefit them. And then we're just finishing off the brisa, and it said, can a Kohen impurify himself? So we said he could leave Eretz Yisrael and impurify himself to learn Torah and to get married. Now, just to finish off the brisa, Rabbi Yehuda Emasai Bizman She'ein Motzi Lilmod. He only can leave if there's no one there, if there's no learning there. Aval Bizman She'motzi Lilmod Eina Matame. But if there's learning there, then he can't leave. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Afilu Bizman She'motzi Lilmod. Like nowadays, plenty of yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. Even when there's learning there, Yitama, he could still leave to go learn by a specific person he feels he can learn better from. Not everyone merits to learn from everyone. Some people speak to their students in a certain way, and those students are more attracted to that. They understand it better from this Rebbe, not from that Rebbe. So, therefore, even if you there is learning in Eretz Yisrael, but a certain Rebbe you want to learn from, right? This happened when Rav Aaron Kollel came to America, came from Europe to America. So Shmuel Kamenetsky, now was 100 years old. So he left Baltimore. His cousin, Rabbi Ruderman, who was Rosh Hashiva, to Rav Aaron Kollel. He wanted to learn by Rav Aaron. He wanted to learn. People would leave their places because there was a specific person they wanted to learn by. Yeah, something unique he was giving over that they couldn't find other places. So, fine. So now, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Ma'aseh b'Yosef HaKohen, Shalach Acharabo L'Tzidon. And you see that Yosef HaKohen did this. He went after a Rebbe in Tzidon, which is outside of Eretz Yisrael. Why Lilmod Torah? Even though he was a Kohen and there was learning in Eretz Yisrael. But a certain Rebbe he wanted to learn from outside of Eretz Yisrael, he went to learn by him. Fine, that was all. Now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says about this brisa, halacha k'Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yochanan says, so meaning you see that, don't tell me that Rabbi Yochanan never heard of this brisa, because he commented on the brisa, on this part of the brisa, about if you can go to learn from somebody specific or not. He himself said the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yochanan himself knew of this brisa, commented on it, and you see here that the brisa says that you could. Sounds like the opinion of the Chachamim is that you could benefit the idol worshippers. Alma pligi. Reb Nosson said you cannot benefit them. This brisa seems to be the opinion of the rabbis, says you could benefit them. So you, Rabbi Yochanan, who told us a second ago that the rabbis and Rabbi Nosson don't argue, we brought you a brisa that you yourself heard of because you commented on it, that they do argue. So what are you going to say, Rabbi Yochanan? Amalach Rabbi Yochanan la'olam lo pligi. They're really not arguing. The rabbis and Rabbi Nosson agree that you're not allowed to benefit the idol worshippers. This brisa says you could, but lo kasha, it depends. Kan belokeach min hatagar the shakli michsa minei. Kan belokeach mi balabayis the loy shakli michsa minei. It depends who are you buying from. If you're buying from the merchants, so then they charge taxes. Then buying from them benefits them. If you're buying from a guy selling at a garage sale, he's not charging you taxes. So then that's not called benefiting them. So at the end of the day, Rabbi Yochanan says you cannot benefit the idol worshippers. Benefiting means you're giving them extra tax money. That's prohibited. But just buying something off somebody, a regular guy, not a merchant, that is going to be permitted. Okay, so now going back to to this price. Yeah, we're going back to the Bryce of Rabbi Nosson that we had earlier and going to analyze it. So Amar Mar, we had earlier Behema Te'aker, that the animal, yeah. So 1 second, sorry. The animal that you take from the idolater should be uprooted. The animal should be uprooted. Amar Mar Behema Te'aker, uproot the animal, which we said was taking out the tendons of the animal between the femur and the lower joint. Says the Gemara, V'ha'ika tzar b'alei chayim. There's hurting animals, either rabbinic or biblical prohibition. So you can't do that. So Amar Abaye, Amar Achmana, you see from Yehoshua, they're going out to battle, and Hashem told them, Es susehem te'akir. You could, it sounds like you could.
Hamstring the horse.
Yeah, what does hamstring the horse mean? Somehow uproot it or restrain it.
It's a good question.
To break their hamstrings so they can't run so fast.
Let's see.
So,
a group of Canaanite armies gathered to battle Yeshua.
Right.
God assured Yeshua that he would be victorious. He commanded Yeshua to hamstring the Canaanite horses and burn their chariots.
Right. So we see that you could. So now, yeah. So it sounds like the prohibition is just to hurt the animal.
Yeah.
But if there's a certain purpose, a certain reason, a necessity to do it, then it wouldn't fall under that prohibition per se. Now, yeah, Tosfos has a problem because according to the opinion that hurting animals is biblical, so then if hurting animals is the biblical prohibition, so then all you see by Yehoshua is that Hashem told him to do something. But here that you're putting a punishment, the rabbis put a punishment on the person who bought an animal from the idol worshiper, how could they go and violate a biblical prohibition? To that, they invoke that there's a principle that the rabbis have the authority, la'akar davar min Torah. They can sometimes uproot, so to speak, in certain cases, if there's a need, certain commandments. So, fine. Amar Mar ve'ezu iker. So we said, what kind of uprooting is it? Menasher parso sab minar kubo lamata. You're taking out the tendons from that the lower joint. So on that we're asking, is that really how you do it? V'ramini ein makdishin. What happens if nowadays someone decides to sanctify an animal? Ein makdishin. So we don't do it nowadays. Ein machkamin. And you don't sanctify your property. Ve'ein ma'arichin. You don't give erich vows. Bizman hazeh. Nowadays we don't do it. So the im hikdish, v'hichrim, v'herich, v'hema. If you do it and you sanctify the animal and you give it to the Beis Hamikdash, so what do? Behema te'aker, the animal gets uprooted. Peiros ksus v'kelim, the fruits, the clothing, the vessels, all those are yirkavu. They're gonna have to rot. Ma'os v'klimatchos yolchem yolichel yam hamelach. Take the money and bring it to the Yam HaMelach, the Dead Sea. Now, says this brisa, what's the punishment for sacrificing something when you're not supposed to nowadays because you can't bring it to the temple? Sorry. Ve'ezu iker. What's iker? What's uprooting? It says Noel deles bifaneha, vehi mesa me'eleha. You close the door in front of it and it dies on its own. Meaning you close the cage and you don't give it food and it dies on its own. So what do you see? The uprooting of the animal here is just closing a door in front of it and letting it die on its own. Nothing to do with uprooting its tendons. So how can we say uprooting the animal by idol worship is uprooting the tendons? When it comes to sanctifying the animal when you're not supposed to, it's locking it up. Amar Abaye, shiny hasam mishum bezayon kachim. It's a disgrace to kachim, to sacred property, that it's going to take a long time for it to die. This way is much faster. Says the Gemara, if you're looking for speed, I have a much better solution. V'nishchate mishchat. Why don't you just shecht it? Yeah. Then it'll die right away. So says the Gemara, no, asu bahuli data kala, because that's going to come. You might come to eat it. You're going to shecht an animal. You might come to eat it. You might confuse it with another animal that you shechted, which is for food. So says the Gemara, fine, I have another way to do it. V'lishave gistra. Why don't you cut it down the middle into two pieces? That'll be a way to kill right away. If you're so worried about the disgrace to the sanctified property, just do that. Amar Abai, Amar Quran, that's going to be like tantamount to what they do to what the idol worshippers do. And about what they did, it says, you should destroy their altars. And then the verse continues, destroy all their idols, and don't do like they do. So they cut their animals in half. So you can't do that. So that's why Abai answered, you can't cut the animal in half. Says Rava. Rava says it's a rabbinical problem. Mipnei shenira kematil mum bekachim. It looks like it's too similar. It looks like you're planting a blemish in sacred property, and actually placing one would be prohibited biblically. So this looks like that. Says the Gemara. What do you mean it looks like that? Nira mum ba'al doesn't look like it. You're putting a full-fledged blemish. You're killing the animal. You're locking it up. So that's not looking like a blemish. That is a blemish, and that's biblically prohibited. So how can Rava say it looks like a blemish, which is a rabbinic prohibition? Really, it is a blemish, and that's a biblical prohibition. So, Hani Mili Bizman, this idea of planting a blemish being a biblical prohibition is only Bizman Shebeis HaMikdash Kayim, when we have a Beis HaMikdash, the Chazila Akrav, when you can bring the animal as a sacrifice. Nowadays, that you cannot bring the animal as a sacrifice, we don't consider putting a blemish in it to be a biblical prohibition, and that's why Rava said it, but it still looks too similar, and we don't want to do that. So it'll be rabbinically prohibited. So says the Gemara, okay, but there's another biblical prohibition. Putting a blemish on an already blemished animal is also biblically prohibited. A case of a bechor, a firstborn animal, it has a blemish. You can take blood from it, put another blemish onto it. There's one opinion that holds that's a biblical prohibition. So it should be like lahave kematil mum bibal mum. It should be like putting a blemish on an already blemished animal. The afal gav de lo chazila krav aser. You see that even when we had the Beis HaMikdash, you still can't blemish an already blemished animal, even though you can't bring it as a sacrifice. So just because nowadays we can't bring it as a sacrifice, should not give you the right to go and blemish the animal. It should also be biblically prohibited. He says, there's still a difference though. Because when we had the temple, if you has a blemish in it, you could always redeem it and buy another animal and bring that as a sacrifice. But here you can't do that. Balmum nihi de lo chazi legufe. Back when we had a Beis HaMikdash, the animal itself was not fitting to be brought because it has a blemish. But ledemei chazi, but for its money you could sell it. So by implanting another wound on it, you're going to make it harder to sell and get money for it, and that money could have been used to buy another sacrifice to be brought. That's why it's going to be biblically prohibited to blemish a blemished animal during the temple period. However, la fuke hacha, that's to exclude nowadays the lo lidmei chazi. It's not fit for its money, v'lo legufei chazi, and it's not fit for itself. Therefore, there is no prohibition biblically to put a blemish on this animal. But Rava said it's still a problem rabbinically because it looks too similar to that violation. Which is interesting because usually rabbinic prohibitions are don't do this, because if you do this, you might come to do that. But if you don't have the Beis HaMikdash, so what are you worried about? You might come to do what? So maybe Rava was worried about it's going to be built tomorrow, the Beis HaMikdash, and you're going to think, I don't know, I'm just suggesting. I don't know exactly the correct answer, but the rabbinic prohibitions are never random. It's often because if you do this, muktzah. Muktzah, if you do muktzah, you might come to carry. Right? There's always a reason for it. So here, it looks too similar to blemishing an animal. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Food for thought. So, Eshkache Rabbi Yona l'Rebbi Eli. Rabbi Yona found Rabbi Eli, Dekai apischa letzur, standing by the entrance to Tzur. And they started having a conversation. Amrle Ketani behema tiaker. I understand an animal that I buy from an idol worshiper has to be uprooted, taking out the tendons. What if I buy a servant? What's the punishment for that? Eved Mai, so says the Gemara, hold on. Eved Yisrael, lo kami bayili. right? To buy there's a mitzvah to buy back a Jewish person who's in the hands of the idol worshippers, to redeem him from there, to get him out of there. So that there's no punishment for getting back a Jewish servant who's being held by idol worshippers. Kikami bayile, evet obed kochavamai. If you buy back a Jewish, a non-Jewish servant from the idol worshippers, what's the punishment? Mai. Amerle, mai kami bayilan. Mai kami bayilach. What are you asking me? Tanya, there's a brisa that we learned in Sanhedrin that says, ha'ovdei kochavim, idol worshippers, the haroi behema daka, or people that graze, which consistently are grazing on other people's property. They're consistently stealing, not a one-time thing, consistently. If they fall into a pit, there's no mitzvah to take them out. Lo malin, you can let them die. However, velo moridin, you can't put them into the pit. That you can't do. You still can't kill them. Now that's usher to do. So, you can't kill this eved. Like meaning, you bought an eved from an idol worshiper. You want to know what the punishment is? So, well, you can't kill him with your hands. Even an idol worshiper himself, you can't kill with your hands. And the Gemara doesn't suggest like we cut off his finger or something that he's less useful for you or something like that, like death or nothing. So the Gemara says nothing, no punishment. It sounds like that. Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zera Katani Lokin Mehen Behema Avadim V'Shvachos. It says that if you buy from them an animal or servants or maidservants. So does it mean Eved Yisrael or Dilma Afilu Eved Obed Kochavim? So the underlying assumption here is that somehow buying from them is only allowed because there's some mitzvah that's being done. That the Gemara says, if you buy back a Jew, I understand, you're doing a mitzvah. If you buy back the non-Jew, what mitzvah are you doing? Amar le mistabra Eved Yisrael. The Eved Obed Kochavim l'mayim yibayile. What do you need him for? What mitzvah are you doing by buying a non-Jewish servant? What's the benefit of that? So Kiyasa Rabin came. Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish. He said, "Afilu Obed Eved Obed Kochavim." Even a non-Jewish servant there's still a mitzvah that's being done. Why? You're bringing under monotheism, under the wings of the Shekhinah. Meaning, whenever a Jew buys a non-Jewish servant, so they have to go through a first step of their conversion process when you buy them, and the second step is when they leave. It's a mikvah. There's a bris milah that happens. There's maybe a mikvah again afterwards, a discussion. But the point is that once they become your servant, so now they have what they call a miktas kedusha, has a little bit of holiness to them, and the Torah compares them to a woman. Not that a woman only has a little bit of sanctity; she has full sanctity. But just like a woman is exempt in time-bound mitzvahs, so too the Eved is exempt from time-bound mitzvahs. But he's still obligated in the rest of the mitzvahs. So he still brought him under monotheism by buying him as your servant. Yeah. So that's still some kind of mitzvah that's being done, and therefore that would be permitted. Amar Rav Ashi. So, okay, that's good for a person, but atu behema, my machnes tachas kanfei shechina. When you buy the animal, so what, you're making the animal monotheistic too? Meaning, what mitzvah are you doing by buying the animal from the non-Jew? So, ela mishum meutayu, v'hachanami demama ate shari. So you're lessening, you're helping remove items that are being used for idol worship. That's also a benefit. He's using his animals and different items for his idols. So if you can buy that from him, then you are weakening his idol worship. You are lessening the use of idols, and that is a very beneficial thing. You're weakening him, you're diminishing him, yeah. Yeah. So that's also something. Yeah.
Oh, Rav Ashi explained why it's permitted to buy animal slaves and mid-servants at a big field. The price also permits the purchase of out the field. Explained by the same answer, buying them diminishes their influence wants a further reason to admit would be to further the settlement of Eretz Yisrael.
Right. So according to Rav Ashi, basically buying all these things from them, these long-lasting things, the animals, the houses, all these, you're either diminishing their use of idol worship or their power. Now they have less power. They've taken their properties, been stripped from them. So weakening and lessening idol worship is also very beneficial. Therefore, we allow you to buy these things from the idol worshippers, even though you're giving them money, paying taxes. Okay. Rabbi Yaakov Zavin Sandala. Rabbi Yaakov went to go buy a sandal from the idol worshiper. Rabbi Yirmiyah Zavin Pita. He went to buy bread. He went to buy bread from the idol worshiper. So, and I guess they both met up in the middle, and they saw each one holding their shopping bag. And he asked him, Amar le chad lechavre, Yasma, literally means you orphan. It means you do something without any knowledge. Abid Rabka Hachi, does your Rebbe buy things from idol worshippers? So the other one told him back the same thing. Amar le Idach, Yasma, Abid Rabka Hachi, orphan, meaning a person with no knowledge. Does your Rebbe do that? So now they both were right. Why? They both bought from the guy having a garage sale, not a merchant. Right. So there's no taxes there. However, each one thought they thought that each one bought their item from a merchant, which would be prohibited. Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yechia bar Abba, Rabbi Abba, the son of Rabbi Yechia bar Abba said, Lo shon ela b'lokech min hatagar, the shakle michsa minei. Aval b'lokech v'ela bayis, the lo shakle michsa minei mutter. That it's prohibited to buy from a merchant because they take taxes from you. But to buy from a guy out of his garage, he's not going to take taxes from you. That's going to be permitted. So they both were correct in how they handled it, but they both thought that the other one was incorrect, how he handled it. Rabbi Amma, Braid Rav Chia bar Abba. So says Rabbi Abba, the son of Rav Chia bar Abba, Ilmolei Haya Rabbi Yochanan. If Rabbi Yochanan was here, Hazimna ba'asra, if he would be in this place, what would he do? The kashakli michsa, that they would be taking taxes. I feel mi balabayis have aser. If he knew that they were taking taxes, then he would prohibit it even from a guy that's selling it out of his garage, not a merchant, a regular guy. So if that would be true, ela inhu heichi zafin mi balabayis, how could these two students? How did they buy from balabayis, from the regular guy selling from his garage? Why weren't they worried for the same concern that Rabbi Yochanan was worried? The Gemara answer, it depends. She'eno kavua zavin. You have a certain guy who's not an official merchant, but he's always selling from his garage. He's set. That guy who's always there selling, basically is like the same as a merchant. He'll charge you taxes. The guy that comes randomly once every 5 months, or he just pops in now and sells you a few gimmicks and leaves, that guy's not usually going to charge taxes. So they bought from one of these guys off the cuff selling you a piece of bread or a sandal, but you have this sometimes that you have this in I'm thinking in Yerushalayim, like you're walking out and see like a random guy has like 4 watches. There's always a guy by the mirror who's trying to sell you a certain kind of stopwatch. Exactly. So like that guy's not charging tax. He wants to get it off his back. Versus the store and the kiosk, then they're going to be charging taxes. Okay. So says the Mishnah, and we're going to have some cryptic words which the Gemara is going to explain. Elu dvar masrum limkar. The following things a Jew cannot sell le'obed kocham, to an idol worshiper. It's starblin. We'll see what that means. Beno suach. We'll see what that means. Upetotros. We'll see what that means. Ulavona, some kind of frankincense. We'll see what that means. Ve tarnagol halavan. A white rooster. Okay, that we know what it means. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, mutter limkor lo tarnagol lavan. You're allowed to sell a white rooster, bein hatarnagolin. If he's buying a whole bunch of them, he's buying a whole bunch of roosters. So then you see that he's not specific about the white one for idol worshiper. Rather, he's just wants a bunch of roosters. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. But the first opinion argues says you can never sell the idol worshiper a white rooster, because we're worried that he's going to go use it for idols, and you can't cause him lifnei iver. You can't cause him to violate his commandments. And since one of his commandments is you cannot do idols, you're assisting him in doing that, and you cannot do that. So now, ubizman shehu b'pnei atzmo, and if you're only selling the white rooster on its own, So first, cut off the finger. Kotea es etzbo because umocherlo. Why? Lefisha ein makriven chaser labodos chachavim. The non-Jews don't sacrifice blemished, lacking animals to their idols. So this way, you can sell it to him. He's not going to bring it as a sacrifice because that's not befitting, to their gods. Okay, v'shar kol hadvarim, the rest of things, anything else. So another cryptic statement: stam on mutter, to sell it just stam. We'll see what that means. Just generally is allowed. Uperushan, but if you explain what it's the reason why you're selling it, then it's prohibited. We'll see what stam is and what perush is. Rav Meir Omer av dekel tov, even a good date palm tree, v'chatzav, v'niklav, aser limkala over kochav. We'll see what those things are. Different kinds of the herbs or trees are forbidden to sell to Oved Kochavim. Says the Gemara on Yudalit, Mai, what is this itztar blum that I can't sell to a non-Jew? What does that word mean? Says the Gemara, it means a tornisa. So Rashi understands a tornisa is a kind of cedar tree called the shita tree. Tosfos has a bunch of problems with him, and they said it means sulfur. Kind of thing sulfur. So now, let's go with Rashi, that it means some kind of shita tree. Viraminhu, we have a problem with this. Why? Certain things that grew on their own were not prohibited for Shemitah. They grew on their own, they're ownerless. However, they added restrictions upon some of those items. Hosifo lein alachsin, v'itztrablin, and muchsasin, ubeno suach. So all these things they added to be included in the Shvius prohibitions. So now one of these things was this itztrablun, which we're translating as a tornisa, which is a shita tree. Now, the isakadaitak itztrablun tornisa me'isa b'shvius. Is a tornisa really going to be included in the Shvius prohibition? The Hatnan, we learned in the Mishnah, Zakla, this is the rule. Kol sheyesh lo ikr, yesh lo shvius. Whatever has roots has shvius. The kol she'ein lo ikr, ein lo shvius. Whatever doesn't have roots doesn't have shvius. And the assumption is that this tree, this itztrablulin, does not, a tornisa does not have roots. And therefore, if that's the definition, if it's a shita tree, that's the definition of it, then it should not have been included in the Shemitah prohibitions. And yet we see that it is included in the prohibitions. So it must be that it's referring to something else. Ela Amar of Safra, Peirei de Arza. It's referring to fruits of the erez tree. The fruits of the produce of an erez tree. What does erez tree produce? I'm not sure.
Ammonium. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah lists 10 types of erez, one of which is known as almanim, the oak tree.
Yeah.
She would targum. Acorns which grow on an oak tree are thus considered the fruit of an erez tree. It refers to the fruit of a pine tree, pine cones.
Pine cones or oaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you cannot sell to the idol worshippers. And when Rabin, he came from Eretz Yisrael, he said in the name of Rabbi Lazar, same thing. Peri the Arza, these oak, these produce of an erez tree, oaks or pines, those are the things that are prohibited to sell to the idol worshippers.
So it's fruit?
Well, the word peri can mean produce. It doesn't always mean things that grow. Right? The word pru or vu, that they have to have children, is the same word.
Out here by growing cucumbers and other smaller things.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Don't take root.
Right. Benos suach. So what's benos suach? Another thing that you cannot sell. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. It's te'ene chivarta. It sounds like white figs. And then it says u pitotros and stems. Sounds like stems. It's its own item. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Bib totros sohen shanu. You can sell them with their stems. Not that the stem is its own item you can't sell. It just means to say you cannot sell them with their stems. Yeah. So why? So Rashi explains because they hang them up in front of their idols, and they serve it like that. That if it has a stem, it's hung up. It's hung up by their idols, and they serve it like that. Yeah. Yeah. Livona, frankincense. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Livona zaka, some kind of like very clear, pure frankincense. So it sounds like it's a certain type of frankincense. Livona zaka, a pure one, a particular one. Yeah. So Tana says the Bryce. So umikulan mocherlan chavila. But you could sell from all of these things. You could sell a chavila, a bundle. V'kama chavila. How much is a bundle? Pir Shavuot ben Beseira ein chavila pekusa mishlosha manin. It's the weight of 3 manes. So apparently, when you sell a bundle, so they're for sure buying it just for buying and selling purposes. When they're buying individual white figs or the fruits of the eris tree, they're going to use it for idol worship. When they're buying a whole bundle of them, so then it's used for commerce. Says the Gemara, okay, but aren't you worried? He'll buy a bundle, and then he'll sell one of the things in the bundle to his idol worship friend, and then he'll use it for idol worship. Says the Gemara, what's the whole problem here? It's called lifnei iver. You can't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. But there's something called lifnei iver, putting it right before him. But there's no prohibition to put a block in front of somebody else because he might take it and put it in front of the blind person. That's 2 steps removed. So that's what the Gemara says. It says, aren't you worried? Dilma azul mazavin lachrini umekatri. They're going to sell one of these things to somebody else, and they'll use that as their sacrifice, or they'll worship it. Amar Abaye, no. Alifne makpedinon, alifne dilifne lo makpedinon. Putting it right in front of the blind person and giving to the idol worshiper himself is prohibited. Giving it to him, and he might give it to somebody else, that we don't prohibit. Okay. Now, a white rooster. A white rooster. So the Mishnah said that the first opinion says you cannot sell a white rooster, and Rabbi Yehuda said you could sell it as long as it's together with other roosters. Then you could. So now comes Rabbi Yonah with a statement, and we're gonna ask on this statement. Amar Rabbi Yonah, Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Zvid. That's one way we have it. Or ve'ika demasni, Amar Rabbi Yonah, Amar Rabbi Zera. So either Rabbi Yonah in the name of Rabbi Zera, or maybe it's Rabbi Yonah in the name of Rabbi Zera. They switch it a little bit. It doesn't make so much sense. Really, Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Zvid said in the name of Rabbi Yonah, who said in the name of Rabbi Zera. Either way, Rabbi Yonah said the following. So let's say the non-Jew, the idol worshiper comes, and he says, Tarnagol lemi. Anybody have a rooster? Who has a rooster? And he doesn't specify. So then, mutter lim karlo. You're allowed to sell him a rooster. A white rooster. Mutter lim karlo tarnagol lavan. Yeah. You could sell him a white rooster. If he comes and says, Tarnagol lavan lemi, anybody have a white rooster, asur lim karlo tarnagol lavan, then it's prohibited to sell him a white rooster. Tanan says our Mishnah. Now we're going to take this Rabbi Yonah's statement and try to plug it into our Mishnah and see if it's going to fit or not. So Rabbi Yonah's statement was, if someone's asking for a regular rooster, you could sell him a white rooster, because the fact that he didn't mention he needs a white rooster is showing that he just needs a rooster. If he says, I want a white rooster, you know he wants it for idol worship. So now, how's that going to fit into our Mishnah? Our Mishnah said, Tanat, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mocher Hulo Tarnagol Lavan, Bain HaTarnagolin. Rabbi Yehuda allowed that there is one case that's allowed to sell a white rooster, as long as you sell it with other roosters, then it's going to be allowed. So as long as he's buying a blue, red rooster and a white rooster, it's allowed. So how is that statement of Rabbi Yehuda going to fit with the statement of Rabbi Yonah? So let's see, what's the problem? Hey Chidami, well, what's the case that Rabbi Yehuda was talking about? That you could sell a white rooster with other roosters. If the guy said, who has a white rooster? Tarnagol lavan limi, who has a white rooster? So then Rabbi Yonah said it's prohibited to sell him a white rooster Even afilu ben atarnagol lamilo, even if the white rooster is with other roosters, it's still going to be prohibited. Because if he asks for a white rooster, you cannot sell him a white rooster. So that doesn't work with Rabbi Yehuda, who allows the sale of a white rooster as long as it's with other roosters. Doesn't go. Ella lavdika amar tarnagolami. You must say it's a case. The guy is just asking for a rooster. Anybody have a rooster? And yet, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're only allowed to sell the white rooster if it's with other roosters. If it's on its own, you cannot sell it. So, what's the case that's going to fit with Rabbi Yonah? That you could sell an individual, you could sell a white rooster if it doesn't say, I'm looking for a white rooster. So, Ulatana, if this was true and it fit into our Mishnah, so it doesn't fit with Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda only allows a sale with other roosters. Rabbi Yonah allows it with even one white rooster, as long as he doesn't say he's looking for a white rooster. According to the Tanakama, he doesn't allow a white rooster at all. So Rabbi Yonah allows a white rooster, as long as the guy didn't mention, I'm looking for a white rooster. That doesn't fit, not with Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, and now with the Tanakama in our Mishnah. Fits with nobody. So how do you make the two fit together? Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, Hacha b'maya skinon, kegon de Amar zev zeh. In the event that he said zev zeh, where he said, I want this and I want that one. So how is that going to fit into our Mishnah? So really, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't sell a guy a white rooster. And according to Tanakama, you can't sell a white rooster at all. One second. Yeah. Yeah. So when the guy just says who has a rooster, then everyone's going to agree like Rabbi Yonah. You could sell them a white rooster. If the guy is just looking for a rooster, then you could sell him a white rooster. Where is the debate in our Mishnah? Is when he said, I want a white rooster and a black rooster. And he says it like that. I want a white rooster and a black rooster. So according to the first opinion, you cannot sell him a white rooster. He just said a black rooster because he wants to trick you. You make you think like, oh, I don't really want idol worship. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he's not worried about that. If the guy says, I want a black rooster and a white rooster, or a red rooster and a white rooster, then you see from the fact that he mentioned red, he obviously doesn't want it for idol worship, so you could sell him a white one too. So Rabbi Yonah stays that if someone asks, can I have a rooster? You can sell him a white rooster. If someone says, can I have a white rooster? You cannot sell a white rooster. The debate in our Mishnah is when the guy says, I want a red rooster and a white rooster. He says so. He mentions two. How do you view that? The fact that he mentioned a non-white rooster, maybe that shows you he's not interested in idol worship. Because look, he took a red rooster or a black rooster also. That would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But Tanakama says, no, he just mentioned the black rooster because he's trying to trick you. You'll sell him a black rooster, then he'll show you, see, I'm not an idol worshiper, and he'll buy the white rooster from you also. That would be the debate between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama. Tanya Nami Hachi, a brisa to support this. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Emasai Bezman Amar Tanagol Zeh Lavan. Avalim Amar Zev Zeh Mutter. Rabbi Yehuda says, when a guy says Tarnagol Zeh Lavan, I want a white rooster, prohibited. But if he says, I want a white rooster and a black rooster, a white rooster and a blue rooster, or not a blue rooster, a red rooster, that's going to be permitted. The Afilu Amar Tarnagol Zeh, and even if he says, I want this rooster, but he was making a feast for his son. If you see he wants a white rooster, this rooster, however, he's just using it for have a party with his son, or he's having someone sick in the house and he wants to use it for a cure, so he's showing you that I'm not using it for idols at all. That's also permitted, as long as you see he's not going to use it for idol worship. So someone's sick at home. But I think they point out that like you can't go off his word. You have to know. He's your neighbor, you know his mother's sick, and the doctor prescribed her a white rooster. Only like that. So we just said though, you can all of a sudden you can sell for a party Didn't we learn the day of the wedding feast for the guy's son? You can't do business with them. You can't do business with not on that day and not with that person. So oso hayom oso ish miya aser. You can't do business with a guy on the day he's having a feast for his son. Says the Gemara, there's different kinds of feasts. There's the wedding feast, where that's a very, very important day. They're gonna for sure do idols. No business with them on that day. And then there's like a little social event. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Masharsha b'tavzik tanan. We're talking about not like the wedding feast, but you get together, friends get together beforehand, and celebrate the wedding of their friend's son, but it's not the wedding feast. So such a not so prominent feast is not a time where they're going to serve idols, and therefore that's when you could sell him the white rooster, and you don't have to worry that he's going to use it for idols.
The first day of the Shavuot.
Yeah, something like that. Let's stop here because this is the next part.
Oh.
Yeah.
Almost 5 minutes.